kind of area, and you can see out. Bears were scary. I didn't see any black bears. I've seen some brown bears in like Pennsylvania and stuff. Crossing a road. I saw a bear crossing a road once. That's as close as I've ever gotten. Accaray for Otter, okay. Fez, I like that. Those are two pretty fun maps so far. Give me shoals and a hyper random, and it'll be the perfect draft. Ah, Leaf, crushing my hopes with the first ban. Sad. Surely Otter picks hyper random here. Or does he ever go immersion? Sniper, welcome. This will be a nice series, I hope. I have high hopes as well. I think it should be good. Otter's really talked up the fact that they always bring their sets down to the wire. Aw, Leaf. Not the ban of hyper random, Leaf. It could have been so beautiful, too. Alright, we're gonna have to root for a wood game on immersion, then. Because it's not gonna be hyper random. Griffin, hello, hello. Welcome in, everybody. Glad to see y'all here. And we get Outcrop as the neutral map. Okay. Alright. Still a pretty fun map pool. Let me pull up civs here. Oh, that's not right. That's right. Up likes the land maps. For beginner water is too much. Yeah, I certainly understand why anyone would not. Although this is Division 2, you'd think the players would be a bit more flexible in the higher divisions to not ban out all the fun maps, but what do I know? But yeah, certainly I understand if most players just want to learn their build orders and not have to worry about having to make demos and docs and Bushwans and whatnot. All right, let's see what these admin bans have in store for us. There's quite a lot of them for the upper divisions. Saracens, I mean, it's a load of pretty decent civs so far. Saracen's probably the only tier 1. Berbers is a pretty good one. Okay, we're getting some heavy hitters at the end. Not the most impactful, but a lot of sort of mid-tier civilizations, I would say. You know, Britons, Japanese, Sicilians, Gujaras, even like Koreans and Lithuanians are sometimes viable if a lot of the upper stuff gets banned out, so might be a fight over the really upper civs that are left here. And yeah, obviously Saracens and Berbers and Bulgarians are really good civs that are no longer available, so. But Chinese and Spanish are still there for potential immersion shenanigans. We saw I didn't, obviously I wasn't casting it, but if you were around the scene earlier today, you saw a very long immersion game. I think that was Chinese versus Vikings. Won't see that again, no Vikings here, so we'll be spared maybe. Looks like the players are banning out the big-time civs themselves. Celts, Slavs, Persian, Spanish. So we'll see what's left, but we might see some interesting civilization picks here in the second half of the player drafts. No Spanish or Chinese. Turks are still there. Trying to think of... Are there any good water civs besides the Turks, really, in particular, left? Byzantines, I guess. Probably we'll see a draft here. Immersion 2-hour game again. Round 2, let's go! Otter promised me a wood game, so we better get one here. He did say Leaf unofficially handshook him that they were going to Aztec Mirror on Hyper Random, though, so that's already not going to happen. Alright, what's left here then? Turks and... what other actually super good civs are still alive here? I'm going to look. Magyars, Byzantines... Mongols, so probably double Mongols. It's not a Jurchens are still there, I guess. Double Mongols, Jurchens, and Georgians. Interesting. I think that's the first time I've seen the Georgians first picked. They are a really solid civ, so... they were going to get picked eventually, but interesting to see them that high for Leaf. Double Mongols make sense, and I like the Jurchens pick a lot. They're surprisingly, to me, I'm always surprised whenever I actually notice, they're quite good on water maps as well. So, very versatile civilization are the Jurchens. Malians. Last I checked, the Malians were 0-4. In the tournament. That might have changed today, but they do not have a great track record so far in this Tarnished Deathmatch iteration. But microing against Siege and stuff, it's such a difficult thing, right? That's one of the things you absolutely cannot practice against the... well, I guess you can a little bit against the AI, but the AI is so stupid with Siege. In both directions. They're super good at dodging, and they're super stupid at attacking, so... one of those things that you really need practice against another person for, I feel like. There's Turks. They were running out. Byzantines is still here. Vietnamese, I guess. Tatars are still available. Oh boy. Khmer are still available, I guess. For Atacama, maybe. Or sorry, Akare, not Atacama. Pardon. Goths, okay. Sure. I mean, like I said, the second half of these drafts are going to have to be a little sketchy. Hindustanis, okay. I don't hate that at this stage. Hindustanis probably match up fairly decently against Malians and Turks, right? Obviously water, not so much, so if it is Turks for immersion, it's not the best, but... no Byzantines. Oh, Otter sneaks in the Dravidians. Chief Dravidian hater, Otter, actually drafts them. That's what we like to see. He might have done that specifically for me. We'll see. For me, it's interesting. I think you snipe the Jurchens here if you're Leaf, and probably the Mongols if you're Otter. But we could see a double Mongol snipe too, I wouldn't be super surprised. Okay. My prediction game is on point so far. Alright. There's our drafts. I think I prefer Otters, but not by a ton. He gets Mongols, which is really nice. Turks and Tatars are very good. Malians, Bohemians, and Dravidians are solid. Leaf, like Georgians, Teutons, and Magyars are all quite good. I'm not super sold on the back half of that draft. But maybe you can make something work out. It depends on who you match up with, I guess, civ-wise. Towers would be good for Turks. Towers are not allowed as far as I understand it because they're too strong. So games just turn into a bunch of like tower creeps and camping, and it just elongates the games and makes them more grindy. Also, certain civs like the Georgians become exceedingly overbearing if you allow them to have towers. Because the Georgians are already a good civ, and then their towers are kind of busted. So, that's my understanding. I was thinking earlier today we saw a Sicilians game. Donjons are allowed. That's the one, I guess, fortified churches also count, but donjons are really the one super tower-like building that is allowed. It was kind of fun. Not gonna lie. But, I don't know, these guys have done way more iterations of DM than I have. I'm sure they know what actually leads to fun games and what doesn't. Except for some of them that hate not outcrop, that hate immersion. Anyone who hates immersion just doesn't like fun. Breeze, hello, hello, welcome. So we're starting out on outcrop. Mongols are very strong here, but I might guess Tatars maybe for Otter. I don't know if you go with your number one pick this early. Magyars are very strong on the other end for Leaf. Teutons can be quite solid as well, but the mobility sometimes is an issue on Outcrop if you go Teutons. You can basically play Outcrop one of two ways. You can either go for one big push down the middle, and that's your entire hope of winning is on that one push, or you can play it a little bit more, taking side controls, a little bit more of a mid-game play. Usually I think taking control over the sides is better at the higher levels, especially because it's just tougher to kill with an all-in the higher up you are. But we'll see what these players want to do. We'll see. Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Akure, if you don't know, both players basically they don't quite start with the castles, but basically they start with two castles. So civs like the Mongols that really want to be producing out of castles are very favorable. I would not be surprised if Otter does save the Mongols for Akure. Leaf has a couple interesting options for Akure. Georgians could be pretty decent on that map, honestly. I've seen Teutons there before, which doesn't really lean into the unique unit angle, but Akure is a map that does tend to just be both players fighting over the middle of the map mostly, so Teutons are good in those situations generally. Sniper likes Otter civs much more. Yeah. Definitely more for me. I'm just like, man, these last three civs are so iffy for me. If we replaced one of these with, like, Byzantines, there weren't really too many more civs left that were even, I don't know, I think Bohemians have a lot more value even than a Goths or a Burmese. Sniper's thinking Mongols on Fez. This is the issue, right? Mongols are really good on most maps in this tournament especially. So there are very good arguments for Mongols on Akare, on Fez, on Outcrop. Probably Immersion's maybe the only map where they're not ideal. Be easy, hello, hello. I'm excited for the Division 2 match. Just even, you know, I always like casting Otter. And Otter versus Leaf tends to produce good sets, but besides the specifics there, this is the highest division I've cast in a hot minute, so I'm excited to see the elite gameplay that I'm sure these two will bring to us. Rush with Goths on Immersion. Yeah, so I could see that as well. Immersion tends to be played one of two ways. Either you have a decent hybrid civ and you play for pond control, long-term map control, that kind of thing. That's kind of the good way to play it. But if you don't have a good water civ that can contest, or you just don't want to do it that way, the only other option really is to try and rush, kill early, kill fast. I think Otter maybe sniped out the Huns, banned out rather, the Huns and the Cumans to prevent that. Goths are maybe the third best rushing civ in DM. They can just spam out stuff so quickly. So I could see that for sure. Alright, looks like they have begun the game here. Got a minute and a half of spec delay, and we shall be into game one. Easy versus up on Tuesday. That is true, yep. Division 10 has done a really good job of scheduling their stuff. Seems like they're on the ball as far as getting their games going. We like to see that. Otter's S tier and preparing. He can always beat better players. He does cook pretty well, I will say that. He cooks really well. He has a little bit of a bias against a couple of civs that I think he could cook with a little bit more, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's Bengalis got banned out. They definitely would have been chosen here somewhere. I think. I'm quite sure Leaf would not have chosen the Burmese and the Hindustanis over the Bengalis, but I don't know Leaf that well. Alright, let's get into game one on Outcrop, and okay, already I'm surprised by the civs, so my good prediction on the snipes is not going to extend out into the actual games, it looks like. Welcome in game one. We have Leaf versus Otter here in TDM 6, starting out on Outcrop. And it's the Turks for Otter, so he's not saving the Turks for Immersion, which is interesting. And it is the Teutons for Leaf. That was one option I said made sense to me for Leaf. So we'll see if any damage can be done here early. Looks like Otter is going to harass a villager here, but not snipe one, and ditto on the back end. Alright, Otter is a big proponent of map control on Outcrop, so maybe the mobility of the Turks is something that he's valuing here. I'm still a little surprised if you're just going to play Cav Archer, Cav. I feel like maybe Tatars does that same thing, right? But isn't quite as versatile on the other map types. But we'll see what the game plan is here. Leaf on the other side. Full Halb opening for now. That's to prevent these stray camels rolling in from finding villager kills. Obviously, the Halbs will not find huge value against the upcoming Cav Archers, though. And some elite Teutonic Knights out on the field. KP boys, okay. We like to see that. Mobility, not necessarily the name of the game for the Teutonic Knights, but, you know, if they get into a combat situation with a camel, they do pretty well. Otter hits the market first. Hasn't really found... Did find 3 villager kills in here, running around with the camels, so decent opening. And honestly, long-term, I don't hate the Turks against the Teutons, right? The Teuton composition is infantry, siege, and then maybe Paladin mixed in. Turks theoretically have the counter to the siege with their long-range bombard cannons. And then they have Cav Archers, etc. for the infantry. So the only thing Turks sometimes struggle against is cavalry, because they only get spearmen. Their camels are fully upgraded, but not special in any way. Okay, infantry wading in. Not gonna be a great fight for Leaf, but does kill some camels out in front. You can see the camels do not do well against the Teutonic Knights. We're seeing 1 damage per hit here. This guy's about to solo this entire camel army. The arrows are cheating. The arrows are cheating. Elsewhere, Otter getting that early map control. Castle and TC on the right-hand side. Denies a castle on the left-hand side. Might also kill this castle foundation. It's not super well built yet. But looks like he's not going to quite be able to snipe another Vill, though. This delays the expansion over here. Otter, on the other hand, double castle, triple TC. But like I said, Otter really likes to play map control on Outcrop, and I think that's the right way to go about it. Leaf, a little bit stuck in the base so far, has not been able to get buildings up on the outside, but is beginning to build up that big death ball army. Bohemians for immersion is also good. I guess. I expect more of a water focus civ from Otter, I guess, on the water maps, just because he likes to play the water maps so much, but it's not terrible, I suppose. Cav Archers dismantle the Teutonic Knights, and I don't know if this castle still goes up. I suppose Leaf is maneuvering the army into a position to occupy Otter's army. Otter has to be careful with these SO on the hill. Oh, man. Everyone remember what Otter was saying about the Cav Archer micro we saw earlier today. There were some choice words about Cav Archers not microing well against Siege. Here comes the Paladin. Rolling in. Otter's going to lose some villagers here, trying to get the TC up. The TC is actually killed by the Paladin. Up in the north. This is a bit of the issue with these Cav Archer civs, right? Otter's having to look in basically 3 different places at once. And it just takes 1 or 2 big SO shots, and suddenly your army is heavily thinned out. Yeah, and you can't look in both places at the exact same time, right? I can't even, so I'm looking up here at Cav Archers dying, and Cav Archers are dying down here! Cavalry runs in. They snipe out the SO in the south at least, but the trebuchets are still standing. They've got Paladin and Halb to defend them. Only 2 trebs, not the fastest push in the world. This is another perk of denying this castle for so long for Otter. is there's just not a lot of trebs down here. But I don't know if he's going to keep that castle standing. And the other issue with cav archers, they cannot just stand in one place and take a fight. They have to be moving constantly. So Leaf is able to dictate positioning on the map a little bit more easily. Treb goes down for Leaf, though. But there's a lot of Trebs for Otter that are kind of being left out to dry against the Paladin. Castle is still up for Otter. These Trebs can't hit anything. Actually, the worst shots I've ever seen in my life. So Otter does indeed lose this castle. Still has one in reserve. Paladin looking for raiding opportunities. These are tanky Teutonic Paladin as well. So they can kind of just absorb the Hussar shots. Hussar blows, I should say. And Leaf is going to go for the Treb push in the north at the same time. It's a good opening so far for Leaf. Economically, Otter is way ahead. 120 villagers already. He's pretty much full boomed. Leaf still struggling at 50 villagers. Has lost much less villagers, actually, so it's just not been a super fast boom. Decent raids here for Otter now. So Leaf is going to have to push. If this push dries up for Leaf, the economy is not going to be behind it to sustain long term. These are good raids. But another castle on the verge of falling. Otter is basically out of stone, is mining stone with a few villagers, but it's going to be tough to keep these castles standing. The pushback is happening in the south, at least. Otter's going to get that TC up. I don't know if these pushes are happening fast enough for Leaf. Like, he was pushing decently top and bottom for a brief moment there, but, like, it's taking quite a long time in the north now. The south, it looks like Leaf has not quite given up on, but basically has. Halbs getting in on the Cav Archers. SO getting in on the Cav Archers. Okay. There's still some alive, I guess. And the SO can't wade in too deep underneath that castle. Rebs roll forward for Leaf up here in the south. Leaf just trying to delay repairing the castle as long as possible, but Otter has 4 trebuchets here now, follows it up with a castle. Cav archers to snipe the repairing villagers. The SO is coming in though, so Otter's going to have to be a little bit careful. Decent shot on the bombard cannons, but most of the SO has been cleared up in the north. There's nothing left here to defend the trebuchets, and I think Otter does hold the line at this castle for now. Paladin rolling in the south. Only 2 trebs here for Leaf, but they were pre-trebbing that castle down before it was built. Cav archers. It's not been pretty against the SO for Otter, I will say. It's not been ideal. But you know what? If it works, it works. Hussars going to run through and raid. This one Paladin is still being annoying on this TC. But it seems like wherever Leaf starts to shift focus away from, Otter has been able to push in that direction. So Leaf started to focus down here a little bit more. Suddenly Otter's on the pushback in the north, right? But yeah, the starting areas are a little bit different. It widens pretty heavily here for Otter comparatively to Leaf. It is worth pointing that out. I think we've seen a couple outcrop games that are a little bit unbalanced in that way. So maybe something they can look into as the tournament goes on here. Otter buying food. I haven't looked at the economies in a while. Otter has actually lost a fair few villagers. Is back down below 100. The eco balance is not bad though. Leaf is really on the struggle bus here. I think has only really had 3 TCs running this whole game. Does have 5 on the field, but has not been able to produce out of all of them consistently. And is still just kind of hovering around 60 vils. Hussar roll in. There's no army left here for Leaf, so they can take out that siege for free. Hopefully no trebs go down in the meantime for Otter. Forward TC. Is this a little bit too early for Otter? Probably it's fine. There are SO rolling in here. A couple villagers do go down for Otter, but the TC completes. Actually, a lot of villagers go down for Otter, but the TC completes. SO, get good shots on the bombard cannons. Otter has clicked on the castle instead. Yeah, that is a good point, though. The more narrow opening base for Leaf means he has more space back here, right? So it's a give and take. Otter has a very narrow space up in the north, for instance, and even down here. So depends a little bit on what you prefer. There's positives and negatives. I think Otter should have this game. He should. He's winning both north and south right now. I said this game often is a big push down the middle. I even thought the Teutons would prefer to play this game out doing a big push down the middle. Neither player has even thought about that. It's been full focus on the outside edges for both players. But yeah, I don't think Otter should lose from here. He's got big eco lead still. He's pushing hard from the south, raiding super heavy in the north, and Leaf agrees, and he's going to call the GG. Otter takes game 1 on Outcrop. Solid game. Solid game for Otter. Leaf played it out okay, but seemed like he was always on the back foot a little bit, right? Took a few villager losses early on. Was prevented from expanding down here for quite a while. Even was prevented from expanding up here a little bit. Otter did a good job of playing all sides, not making anything easy for Leaf, and takes a neutral map. That's the game plan for the Turks, right? They're all mobility, and Otter used that mobility well. The Teutons, they have cav, but they're slow cav, and they really the Teutons live or die in any particular fight based around their siege, right? And siege is not something you can swing from side to side. So, all right, good game 1 though. Turks are the better civ here. Turks, I think in this matchup, I prefer Turks to Teutons. Generally speaking, I don't know if I would consider Turks better than Teutons or not. They're probably somewhat close. Turks are viable on water maps, whereas Teutons are not so much. That's one thing to keep in mind. All right, so Outcrop goes to Otter. That is the Turks beating the Teutons. Was a higher drafted civ for Leaf compared to Otter. So that's a double whammy of feeling good for Otter in this series. Versus Teutons specifically, I think Turks should be favored. Obviously, it's more micro for the Turks, right? So it's dependent on that. But assuming you're able to snipe out siege with bombard cannons, you're able to not lose all of your cav archers for free, I think Turks should usually win versus the Teutons. I think. I'm not an expert either. I'm not a professional here, but those are the vibes I get. Looks like we're moving on to Fez. So we've seen the Mongols on Fez a lot. But... If Otter goes Mongols here, then what is he saving for Akure? Like Tatars there, maybe? Bohemians? I don't know. And then Leaf... Leaf might go Magyars here, unless he wants to try and, like, Hindustanis match up decently against the Mongols. Like, as far as any civ they can match up well against, Mongols is one of the better ones, probably. Maybe Leaf tries to counterpick Hindustanis here, thinking Otter will go Mongols, and Hindustani camels do a lot of work against the Mongols, but... Bohemians here? Are Bohemians fast enough for Fez? I feel like you need mobility here. But maybe not. I think Otter has talked up the Mongols a fair bit on Akure. Normally I would say Mongols are picked on Fez a lot, but I think Otter likes them on Akure. So my prediction is Tatars versus maybe Magyars, maybe Hindustanis, but I was completely off, well, I was mostly off base in game 1, so I might not have good insight into the mind of these two players. I think Tatars is accurate. They're probably decent there, right? You always mix in some Keshiks with the Tatars, ideally, so having the extra castles helps them as well. Alright, let's get into this one, though. Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I was not on base with this one, guys. Welcome in. Game 2, Leaf versus Otter here in TDM6. We are on Fez, and it is the Malians for Otter. It's the Burmese for Leaf. So we have seen a few elephant all-ins on Fez before. Don't know if we've seen it work yet, but it has been something people have attempted, so maybe that's what the idea is here for Leaf, but it's actually quadruple barracks and 2 castles opening for Leaf. Interesting. Just saves that villager, and Otter snipes the scout on the other side. Malians, they've been much maligned in this tournament so far. They do not have a good win-loss record at all across the entirety of the tournament, but they are still a very solid civ. Let's see if Otter can get something going here. Barimba camels, they have 14 attacks, so they can snipe villagers very nicely. But looks like Leaf is doing a pretty good job here of plugging all the little gaps. Gets the castle up, and I don't think the camels should find too much value here. Alright, now the stables start coming up. Now the elephants start coming out. So it's going to be elephants, siege, Rambai. Someone can... I haven't seen the Burmese a ton in DM so far in my young DM casting career, but I feel like Arambai are not great, right? You kind of need a lot of Arambai, don't you, in order for them to start being good? And if you're also going for an elephant push, I think the Trebs are more important, but might be mistaken. Otter going for the map control. Long term, I think the Malians are a better civ than the Burmese by a fair margin, so I don't think Leaf really wants this game to go super long. He might not focus on map control that much early on here. Just wants to go for a big push, do a ton of damage with these elephants. And we'll see if he's able to. SO can come out for Otter. SO and Scorpions are the elephant killer. Brimba camels will do better than a lot of camels here against this army, but Halb and elephants should be able to take pretty good fights here. Urambai are helping out, I guess. I suppose. Yeah, true. The Urambai don't cost food, which is important for the Burmese, right? Because they're spending so much food on everything else that they want to make. So I suppose that does make sense in that regard. Forward castle for Leaf. 1 villager forward castle. Okay, 2 villagers. Otter playing it defensive for now. Does lose a villager on this castle. I guess that's true. Urambai are kind of cav archers. Kind of. If they can hit something. Like, they don't hit super often, but they can sometimes deny buildings like this. But this is the big push here. SO are getting good shots for Otter into the elephants, but they are getting cleared up by elephants behind. It's a lot of elephants. It is a lot of elephants. 4 siege workshops for Otter is pretty good, though, as long as he's able to keep getting DPS out into these elephants. I don't know where these guys are going. Are we all chasing this one cav archer? Alright. We gotta get back in the fight, guys. Trebs? Where are the Trebs? Is it just 2? Okay. I think we need more Trebs. There's a forward castle here now as well. We need to kill as soon as possible if we're Leaf. But I guess it's only 1 castle directly in the base for Otter, right? Another one's coming up here, but if this castle falls, things are going to get real sketchy for Otter. This is really good for Leaf. A few elephants down here to deny the expansion. We saw on Otter's channel earlier, right? Was this yesterday even? I'm getting myself mixed up. Recently, Otter calls it GG. We saw one player almost die to an all-in Khmer elephant rush. I think this was actually yesterday. And the defending player just kind of spread out, managed to survive long enough on the sides, even though the main base was lost. This was with the Mongols, that the elephant player ran out of steam and ended up dying. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that Leaf is doing a really good job of this to prevent the expansion, so Otter has no opportunity to expand to the sides and stay alive. He's kind of all in on the middle here. And, well, elephants OP, man. Who needs these fancy civs with all their camels and cav archers and siege and whatnot when you can just make elephants? All right, Leaf on the board. We like to see that. We don't want any sweeps. And last pick Burmese. Get the win over the Malians. Okay, Leaf needed that. Leaf needed that in a big way, I think. You're always playing from behind a little bit if you lose the neutral map. So to be able to come back here, get a win with the last drafted Civ over a pretty high pick for Otter, I think that's a good response from Leaf in this series. Yeah. Malians maybe struggle a little bit up against the elephants too. Basically just the siege is the only thing you really have against them. Camels technically counter elephants. I think maybe cost effectively they still come out on top for the Malians, but 1-to-1 population space efficiently, it's all the elephants, right? So maybe a really good counter pick there for Leaf. All right, Otter's going to take us to Immersion next. So, we had a prediction earlier of Goths for Leaf. going for a rush on immersion. I still think that makes the most sense for Leaf. For Otter, I think it is Bohemians probably, right? If you're anticipating Goths, the Bohemians do quite well against the Goths. And Bohemians aren't the worst Civ on water. They can play that out a little bit too. Theoretically, if Leaf goes for like a Georgian is here or something that has a bit of a better navy. I don't think that's going to happen, but I guess it is a possibility. You could also, I mean, you could go Dravidians. I also don't think Otter is going to pick the Dravidians, probably for this whole set, but Dravidians dumpster the Goths. So if Otter is confident that it is going to be the Goths, obviously you have to survive the original rush, but if you don't die immediately to the Goths as the Dravidians, it's kind of a Civ win situation. So, you know, I'm a big Dravidian fan. I think this is about as good of an opportunity to play them as you're going to get in this series, but I suspect Otter is not going to. Otter does not like the Dravidians very much, generally speaking. So my guess is something like Bohemians against Goths. They're too slow to get control of the pawns. Well, is Leaf going to play for control of the pawns, though? With any of these civs, realistically? Or is he going to go all out land? I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what the Magyar's water tech tree looks like. I don't really know what the Hindustanis or the Goths water tech tree is either. Being incredibly upfront, I never see those civs on water maps, which usually means they do not have a very good water tech tree. But for DM, for immersion, you don't necessarily need a full dock tech tree, right? You just kind of need demos and like maybe some good fast fires. You definitely like, you don't need Galleon or like you don't necessarily need great siege navy. I know the Goths have Dramens, but Goths get, yeah, shipwright's the other one that is kind of important. So heavy demo, shipwright, and Dramens, that's not bad. So maybe yeah, maybe you can't ignore water then. It'll be interesting to see how they play it out though. All right, let's get into the game, and I'm really batting for 0 today, guys. I predicted somewhat Teuton's game 1, and I have just not been on the ball after that. Welcome in game 3. We're all tied up here. Otter versus Leaf. Game 3 is on immersion. This is the first time I'm casting immersion this season of TDM. So that's exciting. It's the Tatars for Otter, and it's the Magyars for Leaf. So I did not even mention either of these civs as possibilities pre-game, but this is where we're at. Looking for some early damage here are the players, but nothing doing. Actually, what happened to Otter's Hussar? He's just chilling out. He's trying to deny the docks, I guess, rather than going for the villager snipes. Otter is going for that center pond control. And like I said, I don't know what these civs do on water, so there's no heavy demo. There's no shipwright. But I guess there is fast fire ship and an elite cannon galleon for the Tatars, so that's something. Magyars? Really not. I guess they have fast fire ships. That's about it, though, on water. The Cav Archers do arrive, not in time to actually deny the docks, though. They do snipe a few of the villagers here, which is nice. And this Paladin might get the last one, and denies a dock. So, elite cannon galleons, not heavy demos, but regular demo ships for Otter. I've been told by a few people that Cav Archers counter Navy in high enough numbers. And it does seem to be the case from what I've seen. Behind this, Cav Archers doing their thing, sniping villagers. Otter has lost 5 vills now, lost 3 on these forward docks, now loses a bunch more on these side buildings. I will say, I think I prefer Magyars against Tatars. They do a lot of the same things, but I think Magyars tend to do those things a tiny bit better. But they're pretty close. It's not a huge advantage, in my opinion. Otter, this pond is tiny. Is this the smallest pond on immersion I've ever seen? I know they reduced the size of the water a little bit compared to last season, but this seems silly. There's a lot of camels for Otter. It's mostly camels, actually, for Otter. A couple Cav Archers in queue, but nothing huge just yet. It is Cav Archers, some Paladin, Halb, and, of course, the Magyar Hussar for Leaf. See how these fights go. It's tough. Man, these Cav Archers are getting very aggressive with all these camels nearby. Too low elo to understand these civ picks. I guess I am too, man. I don't know. This is not what I would have expected at all, but it ends up being a pretty close game, really, civ-wise, so, you know, I don't mind. Leaf really is trying to sell out to fight the Navy in the middle here. I don't know if that's wise just yet. Halb helping out a ton here, and the Magyar Cav Archers are incredibly strong as well. Underneath 3 castles are these camels. It still might be worth it if you can thin out the Cav Archer numbers. But Otter's losing a lot. Only 600 gold left in the bank for Otter. These are nice snipes, though, on the villagers. Already has cannon galleons up here being sniped by Cav Archers. Not a single dock has been made, by the way, for Leaf. It is full land control. And he's using the land control in order to get water control, which is a funny reversal of what we saw last season on this map. Usually, again, bigger ponds back then, but usually it was water control to then get land control. How are we doing economically here? Neither player is doing very well at all, economically, actually. 21 vills for Otter, 18 for Leaf. It has been full production here. Here come the Keshiks. These guys have pretty good pierce armor, so they can tank quite a bit of Cav Archer fire as they wade in. But it's still Magyar Cav Archer, right? With the meat shield of the Hussar in front. Suddenly turns into not such a great fight. Halbs. Come on, just poke that Halb out, man. You're so close. I swear you can reach that. You gotta stretch your arms a little bit there, buddy. Magyar Hussar raids are coming in hot for Leaf. Otter goes down to 24 villagers. The eco's not good for Otter. He's out of gold. He only has 2 on gold. He is pushing the forward castles from Leaf, which is good. Magyars do want those castles in order to produce the Magyar Hussar. So every castle that goes down here for Leaf is good for Otter. Paladin raids, not finding a ton of value. There's enough castles in the eco for Otter, at least on this side. But, I don't know, 43 military for Otter. He's out of food as well. So, what military is Otter going to be able to field here in the next 5 minutes? Leaf's still sitting on a pretty good bank of resources, getting a little low on gold, but can produce out for a while longer, I think. I'm kind of liking this for Leaf, I think. It feels like Otter's just going to run out of steam. He loses all the trebuchets. He has triple pond control, but it's not really getting him that much. I guess he is clearing a castle and a TC over on this side, for whatever that's worth. Needs more castles, that's for sure. Another castle back here. He's mostly covered, I guess, in the eco. And one more up here, yeah. So he's going to try and play defensively a little bit, get himself boomed back into the game now. Keshiks find a pretty decent engagement against the Cav Archers before the Halb show up. It's only 23 Cav Archers for Leaf. Just not a lot. You want this number at least at 40, I think. Ideally closer to 60. Magyar Hussar are going to actually win this pond. Can't quite reach that guy, I guess, but... So, after all this, it was a ton of fighting, not much eco in the early moments, but now 15 minutes into the game, both players seem to have hit the wall a little bit in military production. How many? There's a lot of TCs in here for Leaf. Okay, so the eco is being fixed for Leaf. Should be able to produce quite a few villagers moving forward, even though I'm only producing out of 2 right now. Map control still heavily in Leaf's favor, but Otter still technically has control over this water. Still has this pond as well, which makes it a little tough for Leaf to get in here. And, well, maybe we can settle in for a bit of a longer game. Reminder, we saw a 2-hour game on this map earlier in the lower division. So, wood games do happen here. Otter is switching into his own Cav Archers, which are different to the Magyar Cav Archers. I think Magyar Cav Archers are a little bit better, but it's an interesting matchup. It's extra armor compared to extra range, and what else is it for the Magyars? Attack? Yeah. I don't mind this. Otter is redocking the middle, but he's just making galleons so far. And I guess this is where the big fight's going to be. There is some pushing happening over on the side here. A couple capped rams from the Magyars trying to push in. Don't know if that's going to happen. Treb's set up over here. They're going to try and take this castle out. Villagers going down for Otter at the front of this TC. He's just trying to bank up. 89 villagers for Otter, 93 for Leaf. It's really a very close game, all things considered. Looks like Otter's going to lose his castle, but he is trebbing down Leaf's castle as well. Leaf is not making any attempt to repair it just yet. Does have a little bit of time. This Halb just tanked an entire treb shot, by the way. Castle goes down for Otter. TC is on the way down. Keshiks roll out. Take a good start to that fight against the Cav Archers. I think both players might lose their castles here. Leaf now tries to commit to repairing, but it's a little bit too late. So both castles go down for both players. This one remains standing for Otter over on the left-hand side. Cav Archers looking for some raiding damage behind. Otter has placed his castles pretty decently. And this camel actually comes out at a wonderful time. There's all of the Cav Archers up. That's nice. Keshiks roll out. The golden Keshiks are actually kind of nice. They're very colorful these days, the elite Keshiks. I don't mind them in yellow. Yellow's, no offense to Otter, he loves the yellow. It's usually not my favorite color, but the Keshiks, they work. They work in this color scheme. Leaf is going to get forced off of this forward gold. Otter on the push. Keshik Cav Archer is a very strong composition. It's pretty much just Cav Archers for Leaf right now. I don't know if that's enough. I guess... Yeah, I think you need something out in front, right? For the Cav Archers. Villagers are that thing out in front right now, which is not ideal. This is a hill for Leaf, fighting downhill against the Tatars. I think, right? I think. It's a little hard to tell, actually. Cav Archer on Cav Archer massacre. I like the fire ships nearby for Otter. They were tanking some arrows there nicely. Now the Magyar Hussar show up. Otter's going to pull back. Buildings being lost behind this for Leaf while trying to micro Cav Archers. I think Otter's in a good spot. How many castles are still left for Leaf back here? Is it just this one in the base? Ooh, boy, that's actually kind of scary. Good raids on this side for Leaf, but if this army goes down for Leaf, there's almost nothing to prevent Otter from rolling in here and killing a lot of villagers. That being said, Leaf is on the pushback with the army. 60 Magyar Cav Archers is just kind of a difficult thing to deal with. Tatars don't get SO, which would be one way you could maybe try to get back into this fight. The sheep are very far forward. And you know what? The Cav Archers are kind of countering the Navy. I have to say, they are kind of countering these Navy ships. Only one dock remains for Otter. I think the galleons... I don't know. I guess it's galleon's all you've got with the Tatars. Reb's pushing from down here now for Leaf. And push Otter off of another gold. And I guess I need to actually take stock of what resources Otter has available to him here. He's only got 6,000 gold, and that's including this gold and this gold, which he does not really have safe securement over. So it's not a ton for Otter. I don't know if I can click all these things. It's 9... Yeah, it's like 1,500 gold. Super safe for Otter right now, which is not a lot. This TC's going to get nuked out. Otter is taking some map control back on the left-hand side, thanks to the cannon galleons. But Leaf is able to get back onto this gold in the middle. Double castle stack to protect those resources. Farming behind. Oh boy. I don't know. I think Otter was in a pretty decent spot at a certain point in this match, but... Magyar is maybe just a little bit stronger here, and Leaf has played this out really patiently. It's been a really good game for Leaf. Castle's gonna fall for Otter. Navy goes down. Cav Archers are down to 29. Still 43 for Leaf. More castles means more Magyar Hussar can start flooding into Otter's eco. And... Otter's going to start losing castles and TCs in his base here if he doesn't find a way to regain some ground. And I don't know how he can. It's Hussar. That's the only thing in queue for Otter right now. Trebs begin firing on the castle. If this castle goes down, there's a lot of villagers and farming eco. Left somewhat abandoned, and Otter has to call the GG. Cannot stop the push. And Leaf takes game 3 on immersion. Oh boy. What went wrong here for Otter besides picking the Tatars? Like I said, it's not the most lopsided Civ matchup. I do think the Magyars are a little bit better, but I wonder if it was overinvestment into the water, right? Leaf never put down a single dock. Like, Otter got some good value with cannon galleons against buildings and stuff down here, but he made a lot of galleons in this middle area and fire ships. And I don't know how much value that really got. So it's a lot of gold and a lot of wood going into that instead of going into cav archers, right? So I don't know. That's the only thing I noticed that really felt like maybe Otter was putting resources into something Leaf wasn't, and it wasn't paying off for him. But it's immersion, man. You want to go water, right? You want to go water on immersion. All right, Leaf takes the lead here. Magyars beat the Tatars. And Otter loses the home map of immersion. That's a big one for Leaf. If you lose the neutral map, you got to take one of your opponent's home maps. So this just means Leaf needs to batten down the hatches for Aftermath, and he can still take this set. Obviously, Akare is another option, though. All right. Okay. Otter needs 2 Sig break to reset. Yeah, maybe. Lost 2 in a row now, and especially, I mean, Fez was a bit of a stomp. Immersion, I wouldn't, it wasn't a throw on immersion by any means. Like, Otter was not in that commanding of a position at any point, but I do think there was an opportunity there for Otter to take that one, so maybe a moment to recenter yourself here. It's looking like they're going to Aftermath next, so Otter choosing Leaf's home map. Otter does need to win both of them to win the set here, so I don't hate going to Aftermath first. Aftermaths, I'm thinking... Ooh. I actually don't know anymore. My confidence in my ability to predict these civs has been shattered this series. If these two mad lads go Magyars Tatars on immersion, how can I possibly predict the rest of the series? I still think Otter is saving Mongols for Akare. Which means... But I think Mongols are way better on Aftermath, no? I guess Bohemians here, maybe? And then... I have no idea for Leaf. I think maybe Georgians is still the game plan for Akare, but I don't think the Georgians feel good against the Mongols at all. Or in particular. They're still okay, but I don't love that matchup. So if you think Otter's saving Mongols for Akare, do you ever... Like, Hindustanis is viable maybe on Akare? Is it? Maybe. No other civs on Akare make sense besides Mongols and Georgians. Probably, I guess. You're not playing into the strength of the map, right? If you're not going unique unit, so... Alright. Let's see what these guys are brewing. But we've been wrong before. Yep. Yeah, what do I know? Do I make any house beats? House beats. Everything you hear on stream is something of my own creation. I don't know if I would... I guess a couple of them I would call house beats, probably, yeah. Okay, well... Here we go. Round 4 of me not knowing what these two guys are doing. Welcome in. Game 4, we're on Aftermath. It is the Georgians for Leaf, and it is the Bohemians for Otter. So I guess it is going to be Mongols, Hindustanis on Akare. We'll get there when we get there, though. For now, Asar rolling in, looking for damage, is not going to find a Vil kill, but does, I suppose, delay a Barrack by a little bit. Ditto on the other side, so both players have really not found value with those opening scouts. Makes sense when you have players as good as this. They're generally quite good at protecting their opening villagers. Okay, so Georgians, they like their Manaspa, but they have decent Cav archers as well. It's Cavalier opening, though, for Leaf right now to get some early pressure on the Bohemians. Bohemians, not fast as a Civ at all. They're going Halb, they're going Hofnitsa, they're going maybe these Hussite wagons. That's about all they can do. Sometimes you see like I think they get champions, right? Yeah, sometimes you see champions. Sometimes you see a few other siege units, right? But usually it's a big, slow push kind of civ. Neither player is taking control over these trade workshops, by the way. I'd like to see Leaf send at least one cav unit to both. Leaf may be under the impression the mule cart could take a trade workshop. That is not the case. You need an actual unit here. Technically, this is a building, so they aren't able to capture anything. The trade workshops give you a slow trickle of resources. You can see it on the gold here for Leaf, but it does give you the same for food and wood. So long term, having control over the side trade workshops is really good. Bohemians probably are not going to be able to contest those trade workshops very much. So it's probably going to be a one big push kind of angle for Otter here. And we'll see what he can do. It's regular onagers for the Bohemians. They don't get SO. The Hussite wagons aren't a super good unit, but they tank a lot of arrows. So if there's going to be cav archers on the field for Leaf, they can tank a lot of those while the halbs get to work, I guess, theoretically. But we saw it earlier with Otter, right? Otter won his one game so far using mobility of the Turks. Now it's Leaf who has the really mobile army composition. Decent fight here for Otter, though. Leaf has sniped one villager so far. You can see the Hussite wagons do decently against the cav archers. But Leaf taking control over the sides. Castle on both trade workshop. He still does not have control over this trade workshop, sorry. I don't know if he's noticed that or not. But it would be good if he could capture that. Hussite wagons heading down at perfect timing. A little bit of, is it Marco or Polo? Which cheat gives you vision over the map? You'd think he could see it all if he didn't know better, because they came down at the perfect moment. Meanwhile, Halbs maybe a bit out of position here, got flattened by the SO on one side, kind of wandering towards the castle on the other side, and that's going to be a lot of Hofnitsa in danger. Maybe not. The cavalry just decides to leave for Leaf. I thought he was going to take all of these. There weren't that many halbs behind, really, I didn't think, but okay. Fair enough. TC goes up for Otter. It's going to be Treb down immediately. Did those not hit this TC? Okay. That was weird. I could have sworn at least one of those Trebs hit that TC the first time. Otter actually gains control over the left-hand trade workshop, but not for long. The Hussite wagon's not going to get it done against the cavalry. Brutex, welcome in. Hello, hello. Yeah, it's not been a great start. Ideally, if you're up against a super slow kind of build up and snowball civ, you want to get that advantage early, right? It's only a 7-4 eco KD in Leaf's favor. Though not the super early damage he would have hoped for. Manaspa also dive into the gnashing teeth of the Halberdier, trying to get the Hufnitsa. Suddenly the army's not looking too good here for Leaf. The Trebs and the Siege Onagers are not going to survive long with the Hufnitsa behind. Or at least they shouldn't. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Leaf has to back up here. That's not what you want to see. And Otter will be on the push. He's got capped rams in front even. There is some cavalry down around the south. We'll see if Otter is able to intercept them with the halbs. And he is. You can't take that fight, man. You really can't. Bohemians, they get an extra 25% bonus damage on their halbs. So these guys are putting out the DPS. 40 bonus damage against cavalry on these guys. It's not great for the somewhat squishy Manaspa. And I'm liking Otter's positioning so far. Obviously, he still has a long way to go. He still hasn't fought out anywhere yet, but beginning to siege down the castle in the north. He actually has control over this trade workshop, even before the castle goes down. I'm not quite sure how that happened. Gains control over the south, and you know what? I said the Bohemians were going to struggle to have control over the sides. That has not been the case. Now, the infantry switch is going to be a little rough for these Halb. Might need to get some... How do we deal with the champions? Just hand cannon, I guess? Or our own champions, I suppose. There's no bonus here for infantry, right? Not really. Pushes back, though. Siege rams to back it up, so no more trebs left for Leaf, but he's going to try and dive in on the castles with the rams. Full infantry now on both sides. Some hand cannons coming out for Otter, but I think he loses his castle to the rams, and the rams might be able to start coming down here and taking this out as well. Otter's going to try and pull villagers to attack the rams. There's really no military here to support them anymore. Oh, never mind. Maybe there is. Champions rolling in from the south. These are the champions that cleared up the trade workshop not too long ago. And you know what? That's a second castle that's going to go down for Otter to these rams. And I don't know why these villagers decided to walk out to this stone. I guess they ran out of stone somewhere around here, and that's the next closest one. Rams are going to get cleared up now, but has Otter been pushed too far? He still has control over the north here, which is good, but maybe not a fair trade if he loses his whole base in the meantime. Yeah, neither civ has a bonus, but they do both have fully upgraded champions, so that's good, I guess. Ram taking damage. Oh boy, decent shots with the SO, but Hufnitsa are just real tanky. There's still a ram here, by the way. 2 castles, 2 town centers, and a barracks went down to that ram push. That's a lot of value. Otter's going to try and replace them immediately. He's repositioned himself here with a pretty good military, so he can start to roll back out across the map, as Leaf is now transitioning up here to try and take control over this trade workshop. So both players switch sides here. Otter is going to start pushing in the south, and Leaf's going to start pushing in the north. Very dynamic game here on Aftermath. I like to see it. Castle is not going to survive this. But again, this is the issue, right? It takes a lot longer for Otter to get anywhere on this map. He's trundling around with Hufnitsa and infantry. It is not a fast unit composition. Whereas Leaf can, I mean, the Rams are not fast, but he can swing these Manaspa around really quickly compared to what Otter can do, right? So, as much as I like playing for map control, it's not really what the Bohemians are known for. Feels like Otter playing a little bit into the strengths of his opponent's Civ, trying to play both sides like this instead of just doing one big push. Suddenly, Leaf has control over both trade workshops. He's pushing in the north. He's gathering in the middle. And I don't know if Otter can respond to both at the same time. I'm not even sure Otter can respond to one at the same time. Castle falls. Villagers are falling behind this. I guess the Halbs are here in high enough numbers, and there are hand cannons behind. So Otter won't lose too much here, but the next army of Manaspa are rolling in. And we'll see how much raiding damage gets done here. There's not too much eco to actually raid back here, really. So it's not the worst thing in the world for Otter as he replaces the castle in the north, but both trade workshops, you can see the resources coming in at a pretty decent clip for Leaf. Otter does have a relic somewhere. Here. Market prices, the price of food is really good actually still. So Aftermath does not have a ton of gold to take. There's a decent amount on the sides here, but you do go through it pretty fast. So that's something to think about. Here we go. Round 3. More Siege Rams, and that's a lot of Manaspa. 60 Manaspa on the field for Leaf. Reminder, Manaspa gain additional attack depending on how many of them are around. So this is 14 plus 8 on these Manaspa right now. They will chew through those Halbs pretty quickly. The Rams will chew through the castles pretty quickly, and Leaf might be looking at a win in this series. Otter not able to pay attention to multiple places at once. It's really tough. This is where you need to be focusing, right? Because you're about to lose the game on this push. The hand cannons in the middle don't really matter that much. But how do you stop this? I don't think you can. There's just not enough on the field for Otter. The Georgian push here is a little outrageous. It's Halb, Hufnitsa, Champion. Like I said, that's about all the Bohemians can make, and it's just not enough against this army. Reminder, Manaspa are still very strong. They've been nerfed. I think Manaspa are maybe the most nerfed unit in Age of Empires history. They've been nerfed like 8 times since release. And they're still really good. They're a little bit harder to mass up than they used to be. They're a little bit weaker than they used to be, but if you can get those numbers up, it's really hard to deal with them. Champions get destroyed. Halbs cost-effectively win, but they get destroyed in a straight-up fight, and Leaf is going to win the set 3-1. This is a play all 5, so we still go to Acre, but Leaf is going to take the set. Either way, really good performance by Leaf here. Yeah, their spam did get buffed again. That's true. I forgot about the most recent little buff that they got. It was nerfed a couple of times, and then Georgian win rate was kind of in the toilet for RM, so they buffed him back up a little bit. All right. Well, it was looking good briefly for Otter. It was a really good hold in the beginning and started to do a little push out, but the mobility of the Georgians, the Bohemians really can't stay on top of that. And I think the Rams were a really good addition for Leaf, right? Otter had Halb and Hofnitsa, neither of which really deal with the Rams very well. So every time the Rams came in, they were destroying really important pieces of Otter's base. Naspa have only been directly nerfed 3 times? That can't be true. Can it? They lost their bonus damage against buildings, which technically was a bug, but it was still a nerf. It was both of those things. That was the first thing they lost. Then they've lost HP at least once. Their bonus attack has been nerfed at least once. Their production speed has been nerfed twice, I'm pretty sure. And then the regeneration nerf as well affects them, right? I might be misremembering a little bit, but still a very strong unit either way. All right. So, that is a win for Leaf on Aftermath. That is a win for the Georgians over the Bohemians. Leaf takes another point, and we are left with Akare here for the Otter. Every point matters in this tournament, so this would still be an important win here for Otter if he can get the last point. There's a single HP nerf and a single training speed nerf. Am I being Mandela affected here? I would have said I'm 100% sure that their bonus attack has been nerfed at least once. But I might just be crazy. Okay, so they lost their bonus damage against buildings, which was a bug, but in my head I was thinking of that as a nerf as well. They then required an additional few seconds to be trained and an extra unit nearby for the additional attack. Then they lost HP. Then they gained HP. Am I reading this right? Okay, so that was the buff that they got back a little bit. Okay, maybe you're right. 1, 2. I guess I would say that's 4 nerfs altogether. So that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, actually. I had built it up in my head that they had been nerfed a couple different ways beyond that, but you're right. By bonus damage, I mean the extra attack they gain by having more of them nearby. So, I don't remember what they started at, but they required an extra Manaspa nearby in order to gain each attack. So that was a nerf. You like the Goth pick? I think you might have been the only one. I don't think we're even picking the Goths, are we? Surely this is the Hindustanis against the Mongols. I know I've been extremely wrong in my Civ predictions, but I think it has to be Mongols against Hindustanis here. There's no way Otter picks the Dravidians. Is there a world where you go Goths on Akare? Against the Mongols specifically. They don't really need the castles, but it does give them a lot of early population space, so the Goth spam comes in a lot faster on Akare, to be fair. So maybe there is a little bit of cooking that can be done in that regard. Right? Because you end up having like 60 population space without even building a house. So maybe the Goths can just get enough on the field early on. I don't know. I was thinking that I think the Hindustanis, they don't counter the Mongols. I would still prefer the Mongols, but I think the Mongols struggle sometimes against camels. So that was my thinking early on in this set. But I'm kind of talking myself into Goths, you know? If Otter picks the Dravidians here, I'm never predicting any civs for an Otter set ever again. if this is a Dravidian pick by Otter, then that's it. I'm done. I kind of do like the Goths. The more I think about it, the more I kind of like the Goths. Obviously, long term, it's not going to be great. But you know what? An early rush, kill Otter as much as possible. Still like Huskarls against Mangudai and stuff. There's some utility there. Let's get into it. Let's see. All right, let's see. Welcome in Game 5. Otter versus Leaf. We are on Akare, and if you don't know Akare, there are these 2 castles on each side. 1 castle on each side, I guess I should say. They are neutral to start, but you can run over here and claim them. So we usually see civs that like their unique units, but a little bit of a different idea here for Leaf, who has chosen the Goths. Like I said, okay, it's 50 population space. You get a ton of pop space, right, off the castles. So the Goth spam is going to come in really fast here. Otter going for some chicken castles. Obviously, when you see the Goths on this map, you know what's coming. He's going to try for some chicken castles. It's a little bit of a clump. Not quite, but a little bit. And it is full Huskarl spam. Now, you do need to fight your way out of the walls. You don't capture the walls, so you can't delete them. So there's a bit of an army still stuck behind these walls for Leaf, but here they come now. Out on both sides. He just needs to pay attention here. Still no eco kills for Leaf. Otter gets 1 castle up. He's going to get 2 castles up. I don't know if this has happened fast enough. It's weird to say 3 minutes into a game, but I think it's a little bit slow already for Leaf. Here comes the Huskarl. Step Lancers will do quite well against the Huskarl, but you're just hoping that the raw numbers can make something happen here if you're Leaf. This is not going to be a good fight, though. I don't know, man. I kind of hyped myself up on this Goth pick. I don't know if it's going to happen, though. I like the cook. And I understand the cook, but this looks over already, to be honest. The Huskarl flood is flooding right into the Step Lancers and just getting chewed up. This forward castle's not going to happen. Otter's going for docks up in the north. So you can get demos down through the middle here. You do want your Step Lancers in front if you're Otter. But, I mean, there's, like, the Huskarl have good pierce armor. It's not really that good against the Mangudai, though. They still, if you get a good amount of them, they still one-shot the Huskarls, and they fire so fast that they're still doing a lot of damage. And the flood continues, though. The flood keeps coming, and it don't stop coming. There's 100 Huskarl still on the field for Leaf. There's not going to be too many more than that. The resources are pretty low now. Otter's going to try and snipe the siege. If the siege goes down, the push can't continue. Leaf can run around here all day if he wants to, looking for villager kills, but he can't kill Otter with 1 trebuchet. Step Lancers are dying, though. Otter's out of Step Lancers. He's out of gold, too. He's got demos coming down from the north. There's only 40 Huskarl left. Who's winning? Who's winning here, guys? Treb goes down. Castle is going to go down. But there's only 30 Huskarl left. Castle falls, but there's still some Mangudai on the field. This castle isn't complete yet, either. Decent demo on the Huskarls up here. Mangudai are going to try and dive for the trebuchets. I don't think this castle goes up. I think Otter should be fine from here. Demo on the Vills for good measure. Style points, nice. Trebs go down. Don't quite get that castle, and I think Otter should be fine from here. Oh. I think this should be okay for Otter from here. That was a little spooky. It was a little bit closer to Otter dying than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be a stomp after that first fight with the Step Lancers, but the Flood maintained a little bit longer than I thought it would. Leaf is going to hit market now. Otter did get the market first. I think, right? Did he? I'm pretty sure he did. I didn't notice for sure, but I'm quite sure he did. Now there's Cannon Galleons out for Otter. He's still got Step Lancers here. The Huskarls just don't feel good if they don't have unbearable numbers over their opponent. But we'll see. Both players not really in a position to kill super fast. Another nice demo there. Otter does have to pull back there. He's going to start trebbing and ramming. And yeah, Leaf just has to call it. The Goths do not have what they need if that first rush doesn't work. And Otter at least makes it a 2-3 set. He said it always comes down to one game on each side. And he was correct. Hello, Otter. GG's. Great series. The rule stands? Okay. Alright. Here's my role. You drafted the Dravidians, the most OP Civ, didn't choose them, and look at what happens. You had the finisher in the back of your draft the whole time, and you avoided them. Ah, jeez. It was a good series, though. It was a really good series. So Leaf does take the set, but it is a close one. And like I said, every point can matter in TDM6. So pretty good result on both sides. I think I might be saying something incorrect, but I think... Where am I? Is this correct? No, this is TDM5. I like both of these players, and then Boomstick. I think those are probably the favorite in this division. Obviously, it's a very competitive division. Baki, Ula, and Cambridge are all really good too, so anything can happen, but I think not getting swept in this matchup is going to be good, but it's going to be really good for Leaf to come out with a victory here. Leaf always loses more to the others than you do. Okay. All right, there's still hope for sure. Friggin' Burmese on Fez. Yeah, so let's bring us back over here. There were a few surprises for us in this series, Otter. I'm going to be honest. I was not good at guessing the civs at all. Especially, what was the first surprise? I was anticipating Turks for immersion. But I was definitely not expecting Tatar's Magyars on immersion. Burmese were also a surprise on Fez, for sure. But kind of made sense at the same time. I guess those were the only big ones. The Teuton pick was not outlandish. The Georgian pick made a lot of sense. It really, my guesses started to fall apart in the middle here with the Burmese and the Magyars. You thought Turks was the big brain move to get Flaming Camels versus the Burmese Ellies. Oh, I see. I see. Otter overcooked a little bit, maybe. I see. Big brain moves. Yeah, the Turks ended up fine. They did really well against the Teutons game 1, right? So, not the biggest deal in the world. But the Burmese elephant steamroll. against the Malians was a little rough. Yeah, we did see a lot of elephants on immersion last season. So I can see where the thought process was there. But yeah, you were very close to winning that with the Tatars anyway. So close set, very close set. I think that immersion game is really the one, the pivotal one, right? None of the games were a little bit, I mean, the last game, kind of, and then a bit the Burmese game, but most of the games were quite even. But I think that immersion one was really where there was the most opportunity for it to go either way. All right, that was going to be my other question. Is you still down for the Bryceland versus upset? So yeah, absolutely. I am going to take a quick break. I need to go get some water. Then we'll come right back, and we're going to cast Bryceland versus Unknown Player, which was played a little bit earlier on in the day. So take a quick break, go get some water, some snacks, whatever you want to do, and we will be back in a couple minutes, all right?